Hello, I am Fatuma and this is another episode of Twitter. I'm in my pajamas. So I did get the idea from watching Ariel Basset's book Sacrifice and kind of went on my own spin. I liked how it had a story, a plot, a narrative. I decided to come up with one myself, especially since most of BookTube is full of YA readers and we love adventure, just giving us a chance to get right into the narrative ourselves. So without further ado, here is the book quest tag. You wake up in the middle of the night panting after having an incredible dream. You know this isn't any ordinary dream, but rather the premise to an unbelievable adventure that lies ahead of you. If this enrapturing premise was to mimic that of a book you've read or decided must read, what would that book be? I am going to choose two answers for my favorite premise, because there is one that I haven't read and there is one that I did read. And the first one, whose premise I was absolutely in love with, was City of Stars by Mary Hoffman. It is about a young boy named Lucian who is sick of cancer, and his father one day, because he's kind of lost his ability to speak or it tires him to do so, he gets a notebook that his father gave him. Lucian sleeps with that notebook, and next you know, he wakes up one day and he's in Venice and he's absolutely cured of his disease. And he somehow incorporates himself into this fantasy version of Venice. I read it the first time, I absolutely loved it. I made a goal to read it again to kind of bring back those feelings, but I'm not getting into it as much as I did. So I think it was really just the premise that hooked me when I was a kid. I really enjoyed the fact that he was sick and ill in his own life. However, when he transfers himself into this city of Belza, he has a chance to have adventures and to have amazing relationships with this tomboy of a girl, and it's pretty cool. The day begins and you brace yourself for all the new plot twists and turns your eerie dream has predicted. You open the door to a journey of wonders when you see that your plain old neighborhood has been turned upside down and the reality that you knew is no longer there. What magnificent world have you stepped into? And I'm not going to say the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Ha ha ha. You probably thought that, but you're wrong. What I'm actually going to say is The Tears of Ardamon by Sarah Ashe, which I also read growing up, and it is a epic teen fantasy about different people in somewhat of a medieval social class where different regions have dragons, and these dragons kind of correlate who will rule each section of the kingdom and how each of the characters were intertwined. And I know what you're saying. I read this before Game of Thrones, and it's because of books like this that I definitely want to read Game of Thrones. This epic teen fantasy is definitely something, it's definitely a world that I would definitely want to visit. Definitely. That was a drinking game you'd be wasted right now, wouldn't you? In this new world, all is not calm. You hear that danger has heard about your efforts to thwart them, and they are not happy. Now, being the amazing, fearless, daring adventurer that you aren't afraid. That is until you figure out that your new enemy oozed out of the pages of one of your latest reads. What is the form that evil takes? The villain, or the groups of villains, I don't know, that would probably really irk me would have to be the Volturi in Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. I know. So, if anybody knows me in real life, they know that I'm not a huge Stephenie Meyer fan. I believe that Stephenie Meyer actually had something when she came up with the Volturi, because those were the only characters that I relatively liked. You couldn't convince them that they were wrong, that was something that I found interesting. And they would genuinely creep me out. I would not want to be up against the Volturi, because Jade would kick my ass. Absolutely. Like, little Dakota Fanning scares me. Scares the shit out of me. You have come up with a foolproof, risky, spectacularly lethal plan to save the world and grant me with all the glory you can imagine. However, you definitely don't want to do all the work, and saving the world can get kind of lonely. Luckily, you've come across a magical genie that will allow you to wish 3 characters out of the literary universe. Who are your companions on your epic journey? In my head, I'm already best friends with half the characters that I read. So the characters that I chose to be a part of my posse, part of my gang when I was, how am I acting thug? I'm not thug. 4 from Divergent by Veronica Roth. Who wouldn't want 4 to back them up? Like, seriously, I feel like nothing could touch me. Like, I wouldn't even have to do anything. 4 would just be like, yo, I'll handle this, so I don't have to think too much. It would have to be Miss Hermione Granger and Sophronia from Gail Carriger's Etiquette and Espionage. I think that she's really crafty and that she would be able to kind of think on her feet a lot when it came to, sticky situations. Your chosen arch nemesis has no mercy. They know that the best way to get you is through your heartstrings. They call upon all their evil powers to bring the character that you've fallen hardest for to life. Who is it that you must now save to save your star-crossed romance? So the character that I've fallen hardest for would have to be Alex from Delirium's amazing mind to create this man of a man. And not because he is the tall, dark, handsome, brooding Alex, but because of one scene in Delirium. It has to do with poetry. If you've read the book, you understand. But that genuinely got me. I don't think I've swooned over a character before that made me just sit there and say, I'm absolutely pathetic. Alex. None of your brilliant plans worked. All of your comrades lie around you, wounded, fighting your fight, and all you can hear are the screams of your beloved at the hands of your enemy. Then you remember something that had been so delicately foreshadowed before, and you know exactly how to save them all. Everything you've learned has prepared you for the most vital part in any epic journey, the hero sacrifice. To give you the strength that you need in those last moments, you think of the literary hero whose sacrifice inspires you most. And my literary hero whose inspiration I would anchor onto in order to complete the hero's sacrifice. I've chosen a character who I have witnessed more immediate inflictions of trauma. That would have to be Treese from Veronica Roth's Insurgent, Divergent, Allegiant. In the last 2 books, she has gone through so much. I do not know how she wakes up in the morning. She's actually a character that I believe has a deep human side, who doesn't see themselves as a hero, but doesn't understand that being a hero is being able to still try to be good to people regardless of everything that you've gone through. I mean, like, she goes through so much stuff. You save them all, but at a horrible price. Deep in a coma you lie, in a hospital bed with your friends and great love by your side. The sound of the monitor changes into one long, steady beep. The doctors do what they can, but nothing works, and they call it. Your love interest begins to cry, and some of your companions get furious. One of them swears that your story will be immortalized. Another agrees and says they'll get the best. While they argue over names, your love looks up to see something peeking out of your clenched fist. They open the paper, and scribbled on it is a name, and they understand. Before you risk your life for all of theirs, you wrote down the name of the only author you trust to tell your story right. if a book was written about me, I would want it to be in the first person narrative. If this was a third person narrative thing, I would say J.K. Rowling. However, I want it to be a little bit more personal and connected, and as if somebody could empathize with everything that I've gone through in my own shoes. And the answer to this would have to be Lauren Oliver. By reading Before I Fall, I can tell that she understands what it takes to make a real character. The adventure part, which had I read just Before I Fall, I wouldn't have said Lauren Oliver, but because she has proved to me that she can do a adventure dystopian book of awesomeness by delirium, I believe that she would be able to capture my little adventure, my bookish quest, to the T. That is the end of the book quest tag, and I had so much fun making this, and I hope that somebody somewhere will think that this was relatively cool and want to try it, if not on camera, to themselves at home, because talking to yourself is always a good thing. That is the end of today's episode. Thanks for watching, and for God's sake, go read something.